Holy Tom Womgasm, Tacoma's own Malachi Flynn just dropped 50 points. Friend of the podcast, a good friend of mine, dare I say, Malachi Flynn, dropped one of the rarest 50-point games in NBA history, joining an elite group of players to drop 50 this season and doing it off of the bench. It's incredible. And on top of that, he did it on 72% shooting from the field. It was absolutely unreal, unfathomable to see Malachi drop 50 in a game. Incredibly happy for him, and that is why I'm going to break it down. The name of the game for Malachi Flynn is these pick and roll actions, but he's so quick and shifty as well, so he's able to watch him fake this dribble handoff, cut backdoor, and just get downhill, burst into the lane for the finish. Here he is, another dribble handoff, using it to settle into a mid-range jump shot. This time using the James Wiseman screen to settle into another mid-range jump shot. Great screen by Wiseman there. And another screen here levels Kobe Buffkin. He settles into a pull-up three, finishes it, and one. Now you know at this point, folks, once he hits that and 1-3, you know he's filling it. Same screen here, Wiseman gets downhill, a little cross, and finish over Bruno Fernando, who's had a pretty impressive finish here to the season for the Hawks. This time, side pick and roll, uses it, settles into the mid-range jump shot over DeJounte Murray. A little off-ball action, gets Krejci off of his spot, explodes and finishes with the left. Another empty side pick and roll, little cross, hezzy, mid-range, splash. In transition, going all the way for the finish off the glass. And then off ball, using that ability he showed with the Raptors to catch and shoot. In transition once again, taking it all the way, passes, relocates, and then hits it in the corner. He is feeling it on all levels right now. And you can see from this shot, look at this, crosses up Kobe Buffkin and then hits a bank fadeaway jump shot, attacks the basket, hits the tough runner, and then this little Spain pick and roll action. DeJounte Murray's on him, no problem, just pulls up into a three-point shot in a pretty close game for the Pistons, dare I say. Here, off ball, little slot cut, gets into a floater. This time, pick and roll, getting inside and finishing over Bogdanovic. In transition, using that speed and shiftiness to pull up in transition for a big time three. Pistons trying to claw back into this one. And so the final bucket, a cherry on top, a nice little transition finish for Malachi for 50 points. The fans, the teammates are loving it, and so is he. 50 points for Malachi Flynn. Incredibly happy for him. Incredibly happy for him. I can't say enough about how much this must mean for a player like him who has struggled over the first couple of years of his career to figure out what his role is in the league and how he's going to be able to carve out what he does. He's always shown a propensity to go off in games. You know, you talk about the Seattle Prime game where he dropped 70. You talk about moments where he's had, you know, he won Rookie of the Month in April in his rookie season where he had a couple of 20 balls. And it was really... It's unfortunate that the way the Raptors' tenure for Malachi ended was, you know, he had gotten not a lot of opportunity under Nick Nurse, and under Darko, he was getting that opportunity, struggled, was figuring things out, was looking more confident, in my opinion. And, you know, it got to the point where he had gotten his trade value up. Like, his trade value was to the point where you could throw him into a trade. And so that's why he got moved to the New York Knicks. And then the Knicks traded him at the deadline in order to get Alec Burks. And now he's in Detroit. So a lot of shifting from Malachi. He's obviously in a position in Detroit where he's getting ample opportunity. Monty Williams said after the game that, you know, he sees him working all the time, you know, before practice. And the grind is something that Malachi, you know, I've talked to him in the past. That's something that he's obsessed with basketball, as a lot of these guys are. Like, they work their ass off. And it's just cool to see a guy like that have it pay off for him. And, you know, a lot of people will be like, well, why didn't he get that chance in Toronto? Sometimes it's not about being in the right spot. You know, I've had a lot of people bring this up with Delano Banton. It's like, oh my God, look at what Delano Banton's doing in Portland. Why didn't he get that opportunity to do it in Toronto? what happened for him to go off in Portland versus what happened in Toronto. Sometimes it's context, man. Sometimes it's just being in the right situation, being given the opportunity. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, why didn't Toronto give him that opportunity? Well, because he wasn't as good. And it takes a while to figure out who you're going to be and what you got to do. And that doesn't just apply to on the basketball court. That applies to your daily habits. That applies to your diet. That applies to who you hang out with. That applies to how much you party, what you prioritize. And I'm not just talking about Malachi and Delano here. I'm talking about every NBA player. Like, you got to figure out what's important to you. And, you got to think these are young guys who come into the league. Malachi was a little bit older, obviously, and for what it's worth, a little bit more focused on the game initially. And like, these guys have to go through the hurdles of figuring out how they want to live their own lives, not to mention how they want to be on the basketball court. And so there's so much to juggle that it's not about why didn't he succeed here? It's how can he succeed rest of the way. And like, in that regard, I'm super happy for Malachi. And it's the reason why I'm not talking about the Raptors game that happened tonight, where I wouldn't even describe it as a game. They lost by 48 points. Franchise history, worst loss in franchise history, 15th straight loss in a row, potentially 16 on Friday against the Bucks, potentially 17 against the Wizards. And the season continues to get worse. They were down to 8 players tonight. No Gary Trent Jr., who was out with back spasms. No Bruce Brown, who was out with knee stuff. RJ Barrett resting on the second night of a back-to-back. And so the season is a wash, folks. It's done for the Raptors. It's been done for a while, but like, let's just put a pin in it and end it here, because what's the point of really discussing any of this stuff? And I could get into Jordan Nwora and why, I'm impressed with the scoring, but I'm not impressed with much else. And I want him to explore everything else, because admittedly, he's not going to be the scorer for you every night when Scotty and RJ and Quickly are back. Like, you need him to try to do other things and work on other things. And haven't really seen that, to be honest with you. I could talk to you about how Grady struggled tonight and how the Wolves defense really swallowed up some of the looks that Grady was good at. Jaden McDaniels was awesome at guarding him. Anthony Edwards was great at guarding him on these staggered pin downs, not giving him a lot of space. That was a good learning opportunity for Grady. And so those are a couple of things that I could mention from this Timberwolves game. But for the most part, it was a wash. And this season continues to be the wash. Good news for the Toronto Raptors. The Grizzlies beat the Milwaukee Bucks tonight. And so that means that they are pretty much locked into the 6 best odds in the lottery, which gives them about a 45.8% chance at retaining their pick this season. We'll see if they do. 45.8% chance is not a 100% chance. They could potentially lose the pick. And we'll be looking at this 15-game losing streak and seeing that nothing has been given to the Raptors for that. And so we'll see what happens. Another good news tidbit here. Since the Wizards won tonight, I believe, the Wizards end up going ahead, and now the Raptors have the 31st pick in the draft because the Pistons lost once again. So they're locked into that Pistons pick at 31. Another bit of good news, the Pacers lost tonight. I believe they lost to the Nets. The Pacers lost, and so that means the Pacers are in the 7th seed, could play in the play-in against Joel Embiid. We'll still see there's still a couple of weeks left. Could play in the play-in against Joel Embiid and the Sixers. Could potentially lose in that playing game. The Pacers have been rocky, to say the least, in this game, in this like last stretch of the season, with Halliburton not looking the best, and the team kind of getting used to a different role with Buddy Hield out. And so there's a chance that instead of the 7th seed or the 6th seed, the Pacers end up with the 8th seed. Or there's a chance that they play against the Bulls or the Hawks in that 8th seed do or die game and potentially lose. And so potentially Raptors could end up with 2 lottery picks this year. A lot of potentialities, but we'll see. Still a long way to go. Still a couple of weeks left into the regular season. A couple of weeks in which the Raptors should basically not participate. But Malachi Flynn, 50 points. I'm happy for you, my guy. I really hope that, I think some of the opportunity that he got in Toronto this season, he struggled in New York for what it's worth, but I think he's been good in Detroit. I hope he gets another opportunity. I think there's an NBA player in there somewhere. He had flashes in New York. He had flashes in Toronto. He had 50 points in Detroit. I really hope he gets another opportunity in the NBA. And I'm not just saying that because I interviewed the guy. I'm not just saying that because I've interacted with the guy. I'm saying that because I really do think that there's a version of Malachi Flynn that could potentially succeed in the NBA. And I hope that he gets the opportunity to showcase that. Regardless, there's a basketball player in there. There is a professional basketball player in Malachi Flynn, and I believe that wholeheartedly, whether it's in the NBA, whether that's in Europe or another league around the world. 100%, no question. And so kudos to you, Mr. Malachi Flynn. You are now officially in the history books as one of the most rare and out of nowhere 50-point games in NBA history. That in itself, tap on your shoulder, a little tap on the shoulder. Thank you very much for tapping in. Subscribe to the Raptors Republic YouTube channel. We all do incredible work over here. Do some of the reading that they do. I mean, some of the writing stuff that they do on Raptors Republic. It's also great. Check in, tap in. Thank you very much. We'll see you for the next one, folks. Bye-bye.